Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Yesterday I spoke about Krishna as the Neta, leader, and I'll continue on that theme today. Actually, it's a huge discussion, but and any of these names of the Vishnu Sahasranama, it can be a very big discussion. Krishna is not a small person in any way. Well, in some ways he is. He's the smallest of the small. Anoraniyan Mahato Mahiyan. So even when he's being small, he's the greatest small. He's not just an intermediate small. As I've heard it said, when one devotee said to Srila Prabhupada, I'm the most fallen. Prabhupada said to him, you're not the most anything, you're just insignificant. So Krishna is significant, that's for sure, and clearly significant as the leader of everyone. There are many leaders, but the leader of all the leaders is Krishna. We've all heard that term, Rajadiraja. Means an emperor. The king with other small kings under him. But the King of Kings, actually that's a term used for Jesus, the King of Kings. I don't know why exactly it's used for Jesus, but that definitely is the position of Bhagavan. So there are leaders in this world, and Krishna has set up human society in such a way that there are Brahmanas and Kshatriyas. We may say, well, in the we don't find in the Western world there are Brahmanas and Kshatriyas, and we find in India there are, but it's just some caste. Most Brahmanas, they work as businessmen or mostly office workers nowadays, and doctors and film actors and all kinds of things. Some of them work as priests, or they are priests. But real Kshatriyas, well, the Kshatriya who makes a command on a computer screen for a missile to go and blow a bunch of people up, that's not really a Kshatriya. So where are the real Brahmanas and Kshatriyas in human society today? Well, the thing is, there is no real human society today. It's subhuman in the name of human society. So Srila Prabhupada wanted very much to re-establish Varnashram, and with the core of ISKCON is meant to be Brahmanas, who are the spiritual and intellectual leaders of society, and the administrative leaders are the Kshatriyas. So leader means there's going to be less of them. Not everyone can be a leader. There's some mythology, or among the mythology that's propagated today is the idea that everyone can just get ahead and everyone can make a great success of their life, success being defined in terms of being prominent in human society, but not everyone can be. Just like nowadays, so I'm told, in Britain and America, about 70% of the children who go to school go on and get university degrees. So university degree has no particular value anymore. If only a few people got it as previously, then it would distinguish the holder of the degree from others as being more intelligent, or at least intelligent enough to get a university degree. But if everyone has one, then what does it mean? Has everyone become more intelligent, or they've lowered the bar? Actually, they have. They've made it easier to get a degree than previously. You don't have to have proper writing skills in English to get a university degree. I saw that when one of my disciples showed me one of the papers he submitted for his master's degree, and the English was terrible. But it wasn't in English, because no one does English. It's engineering or some Shudra thing like that. So, what are the qualities of the leaders, the Brahmanas and the Kshatriyas, who are a small percentage of society? Have your hand on your mouth. That will be a small percentage, and they are distinguished by their exceptional qualities and abilities. And those qualities and abilities are a reflection of the qualities and abilities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So the Brahmanas and Kshatriyas are known as representatives of the Supreme Lord. The Brahmanas are considered to be just like God, and the king also. He's supposed to be a representative of God. If they don't represent God, then they're representatives of Ravana and Hiranyakashipu, who are also leaders, but they were leaders of the demons. And they also had some leadership qualities, but not the kind of leadership qualities that are conducive for progressive human society. Srila Prabhupada used this word progressive to mean, it's in modern parlance, it's generally used to mean progressive means to become more degraded. But in Srila Prabhupada's parlance, it means to become more Krishna conscious, or to proceed toward the goal of Krishna consciousness. So the qualities of the Brahmanas and the Kshatriyas, they represent the qualities, or they are qualities which are given by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So we can meditate on those qualities as they are manifested in the Supreme Lord. Mostly when Krishna comes in human form, of course we're speaking in anthropocentric language here, speaking from the human perspective. Krishna, because he has many forms, animal-like forms, or rather forms, the prototype animal, just like one name for Varaha Deva is Adi Varaha, the original form of the pig, not this horrible, stinking pig, but the Vishnu as the beautiful, heroic pig. So the human forms, that is his very form. Krishna Jote Kela Sarvabhautam. What is it? Sarvabhautam. I forget it. Krishna Jata Kela Sarvabhautam Nara Lila Nara Bapu Taha Sharup. Among all of Krishna's pastimes, those of the human forms, they are the topmost. And the human form, that is his very form, or original form. So when Krishna appears in human society, in the human-like form, that's mostly, generally is the Kshatriya form, because he comes Paritranaya Sadhunam Vinashayata Dushkritam. And when he comes, generally there's a lot of, for the sake of uplifting the pious, that means there are a lot of impious people to be dealt with. So, Krishna, he's Kshatriya, Dwarakadhish. Of course, Shishupal criticized Krishna. That we're not even sure whether he started off as a Vaishya and then he somehow or other became a Kshatriya, and we don't even know where he comes from, which was although Shishupal meant it as an insult, actually it's praise of Krishna, because Krishna is not within any of the orders of human society, and Krishna is he's transcendent to all these orders, and you can't know Krishna. To say that Krishna is a Kshatriya is incorrect. To say that he's a Vaishya is incorrect. Krishna is above all these. Chatur Varnyam Maya Shrishtam Guna Karma Vibhagasha. So these 4 divisions in human society, they're made according to guna. That means sattva guna, rajoguna, tamaguna. But Krishna is Chibhir Gunamaya Bhava Edamana Edam Jagat Mohitang Na Bhijanati Mamavyayamanutamam. Krishna is beyond the 3 modes of material nature. But even as a Vaishya boy, he was killing many demons. That's not the usual. It's not the things that Vaishyas usually do. Maybe Krishna should have called Balaram to do it, because Balaram was known as the son of Vasudeva and Rohini. But then, of course, Krishna is also not restricted by any role his role as a Gopal is a role as a Vaishya. But Krishna appears as the heroic prince who killed so many demons. Ramachandra Bhagavan. Parashuram appeared as a Brahmana but acted as a Kshatriya. Vamana Dev appeared as a Brahmana, so he didn't kill Bali Maharaj, but he engaged in some clever trickery to overcome him. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appears as a Brahmana. Nityananda appears as a Brahmana. So in their Leela there's no killing. They suppress the demons by bringing out the godliness, the dormant godliness in them. So that's a great art. So, the leaders of human society are Brahmanas and Kshatriyas. 9 qualities of Brahmanas are described by Lord Krishna in Bhagavad Gita. Shamaha, that is control of the mind or peacefulness. So, a Brahmana is peaceful. Why is a Brahmana peaceful? Well, real peace comes when one is free from material desires. Krishna Bhakta Nishkama Taiv Shanta. A devotee of Krishna has no material desires and therefore he is peaceful. The real Brahmana has no personal desire. He's satisfied with what he has. It's not trying to improve his income, or he's not harassing people to give more dakshina. He doesn't open a temple so that he can earn money from it. He's quite peaceful. Whatever he does his duty, and whatever Krishna sends, he's content with. Even he may live in poverty, and actually may prefer to live in poverty, because as soon as there's money, there's trouble. It's more wealth and more problems. So, of course, there's also prestige which comes from wealth. There are also facilities, but with that comes problems. So Brahmanas like to live simply. One reason why many people, they won't appreciate this kind of project where devotees are trying to live simply, is because they're not Brahmanas, and they've never seen Brahmanas, and they don't know what it means to be a Brahmana, and there's no respect for Brahmana culture. It's Shudra culture. Just get money for sense gratification. This is the culture of the modern age. So this Shudra, or lower than Shudra culture, actually is lower than Shudra culture, then people, they won't appreciate how people are living simply. If someone dresses up as a big Brahmana and cheats them of all their money by some religious mumbo-jumbo, telling them, you give 10 lakhs of rupees and I'll do some astrological adjustments for you, then people, they think, oh, very good Brahmana. But someone who actually lives, who's very peaceful and doesn't care for prestige, then they can't appreciate. So the peacefulness that is in Krishna, he is Atma Rama, he takes pleasure in himself. Apta Kama, all his desires are fulfilled, automatically fulfilled. The outside of this material world, the whole spiritual, the worlds, everything is operating simply and directly for Krishna's pleasure. So even if you want to be a big enjoyer, it's not possible to enjoy on the level of Krishna. He has the capacity to enjoy far beyond we can even imagine. If there's even one Vaikuntha planet, we couldn't even take the force of so much pleasure, being the object of so much sense gratification. But Krishna has millions of planets to oversee. So he's fully satisfied. Therefore, he has no motive to exploit others. He doesn't have to show himself to be better than others. He doesn't have to take things from others for his sense gratification. He's already completely fulfilled. So Brahmana is completely fulfilled in thinking of Krishna. And Dhamma means control of the senses. Of course, Krishna doesn't have to make any effort to control his senses. And he doesn't have to control his senses either. Sense control is for those who are subordinate. Actually, of the Brahmanas and Kshatriyas, they have to control the senses. The Kshatriya is not just some indiscriminate hedonist who just enjoy. Well, that's the problem. The kings, they became indiscriminate hedonists, and then they lost their power to rule. They have to rule according to dharma. They have to control their mind and senses. Even in a battle where you're angry like anything, and you're trying to kill your opponent, still the Kshatriya has to control his mind. And if he, just like for instance, if the opponent drops his sword, you're fighting with a sword and you deal such a strong blow to your opponent that you strike his hand and he drops his sword, and then in the anger you might just want to take the advantage and kill him, but even in that angry situation, you have to control your mind. Now he doesn't have a weapon, I cannot strike him. And they were following this. And that's one reason, I presume, why the Muslim invaders were able to conquer the Hindu kings, because the Hindu kings fought according to rules and the Muslims didn't. They'd do things like attacking at night, coming up from behind, and all kinds of things. And the Hindus, they wouldn't do that. They were trained in a different way, so they were at a military disadvantage. Because they acted nobly. They didn't resort to this kind of techniques which have it's gone down, and they wouldn't do things like in in the Vedic culture, if you conquer an area, you don't loot and pillage it, destroy it. So they were in contact with these barbaric people. So Krishna's at the same time he is in control of his senses, because if he did lose control, then we'd all be in a lot of trouble. Lord Shiva, he gets so angry sometimes that he destroys the whole universe. But he has to keep that anger under control until it's the right time. Just seeing the people is just not Krishna conscious. And Lord Shiva dances in anger, and just that wild dancing, and with that dancing comes the destruction of the universe. And from the underside, Ananta, he burns it up. So Krishna, he's in control. Only one important principle to understand is that higher than Krishna is love, if that is possible. But Krishna submits himself to be controlled by love, so he becomes controlled by the love of his devotees. So in that sense, he states that he told Durvasa Muni that if you insult my devotee, you can come and you can plead according to Nyaya. We had this word name Nyaya before this. But I just can't tolerate. It's beyond my control to see my devotee insulted. So Krishna is fully in control of himself. Otherwise, how could he control everyone else? But he doesn't, his mercy doesn't extend to those who insult his devotees. Tapa, in the material world, the Brahmanas, they have to perform austerity, but Krishna doesn't have to. But still he does, just to teach us. As Narayan Rishi, as Rishabdev. Shocham, Krishna is very clean. He doesn't have to follow any rules of cleanliness, but he follows all the rules of dharma when he comes in this world, just to teach us. Kshanti means tolerance of various situations. So Krishna, as he speaks in Bhagavad Gita about tolerance, matra sparshastu kaunteya shitosha sukha dukkha daha agama payano nityastang sitikshasva bharata. One has to tolerate the ups and downs of the material situation, knowing that these situations come and go. So Krishna, he's teaching this. He has to practice it also. That apane na koile dharma shikhan na jai. Unless one personally follows dharma, one cannot teach it. So Krishna, he never feels any distress, but he may, coming into this material situation and playing like a human being, then he teaches us also what to tolerate and what not to tolerate. It's that this idea of tolerance has been is widely spread in the Western world, some kind of neo-Buddhism, that you just tolerate everything, tolerate all kinds of bogus ideas and whatever anyone thinks, everything's okay, everything's all right. Well, that kind of tolerance should not be there. Kshatriya has to establish Vedic dharma. So, to tolerate everything is not correct. One should tolerate personal distress, but one should not tolerate transgressions of dharma. The teacher, the Brahmana, should not tolerate his followers or his disciples not acting properly or he should teach them. He has to teach them. So they have to. Generally, the Brahmanas, although their heart is very soft, but their words might be quite strong, because they have to train. They can't allow they cannot tolerate to see their disciple not living by or being trained in the principles of dharma. So he has to be strict. Whereas the Kshatriyas, they're the other way around. They speak sweetly, but inside they're hard like anything. That's a politician. Talk nicely, but they'll kill you if necessary. Speak softly and carry a big stick. That was one American president gave that idea. Who was that? Any idea? Roosevelt. He was an above the rest of them kind of president, was he? Speak softly and carry a big stick. Foreign policy. At home also, maybe. So, anyway, all these qualities could be discussed in much detail. Tapas, shocham, kshanti, arjavam. Straightforwardness, non-deceptiveness. This cannot be for Kshatriyas, because they have to deal with people practically. Kshatriya means they have to deal with practically, and Brahmanas means they have to deal ideally. And ideal and practical will never coalesce exactly. So in Vedic culture there are two classes of people. One fully sworn to the ideal, and another who's the Kshatriya, they're also pursuing the ideal, but they are bringing that to the real world situation, which we're dealing with less than ideal people. So they have to be tricky just to deal with other Kshatriyas. Otherwise, if they're completely straightforward, then there'll just be fights all the time. So sometimes to avert a fight, one may deal in a diplomatic way. The word diplomatic, it has negative connotations, but it need not necessarily be. Diplomatic, that can mean sometimes speaking in a cunning and cheating way, but in the original sense it just means dealing in a way that you don't state exactly your intention, but you deal with people in a way that they feel pleased and they're satisfied, and that the best interest of both as far as possible is served. So, but for a Brahmana, again, it's straightforward, means what he says may not be appreciated by, is likely to be not appreciated by everybody. He has to be very pure in his heart and his behavior to be so straightforward. And straightforwardness means also that materially that may not be to one's advantage. If you tell people things that they don't like to hear, then the people, they won't do things for you. Likely they won't do things for you that you might want them to do. That's the world works on the principle of everyone's playing some game, and everyone pretends to like everyone while extracting the most they can out of everybody around them. And averting. They speak to people nicely and pretend they like them, but actually they hate them, but they just deal with them like that because they're not in a situation to speak down to them. There's a saying, this is from someone outside the Vedic tradition. I can't remember who that. You can tell a person's character by how he treats people from whom he has nothing to gain. Interesting, huh? So Brahmana feels he has nothing to gain from anyone. Of course, the Brahmana he will respect It's not that he's disrespectful. He respects the other leaders, the Kshatriyas, the Brahmanas, seniors, gurus, very much to be respected. But for his personal sake, it's not that he's trying to get anything from anyone. And we do see people like that still in India today among the Brahmana community. I mean, I would say some of the, in different places. I mean, many Brahmanas still, that's supposed to be a tradition. Like you give some dakshina and it's not like they look and see whatever you give, they'll take. I mean, there are others also who will just extract it out of you down. They'll take your credit card and take it beyond they'll bankrupt you fully. And they won't, with no remorse whatsoever. There are. More in North India. Maybe, not so much in South India. Hyderabad is anyway mixed culture. But I would just like, for instance, the Brahmanas in Dwaraka, they're not anyone in Dwaraka except maybe the land mafia, but it's not that they're trying to get anything from. They feel they're quite happy to serve Dwarkadish and they know he'll maintain them and they're just happy like that. They are living quite comfortably, not luxuriously, and it's not that they're trying to extract anything from you. So there are such people. And they may not even be in Brahmana class. It's not that everyone's extremely greedy for money. Still, despite the modern culture, there are some people who are not greedy for money. But I don't know if it's going to continue like that. But where there is Brahminical culture and it's taught that anyway this life is temporary and what's the use of trying to make oneself a big shot, so-called big shots, then in that culture there won't be widespread greed. So anyway, arjavam, straightforwardness. That's straightforwardness, non-duplicity. And then jnana, of course, the Brahman has to be knowledgeable. Knowledgeable means to know the Shastra. And vijnana, not just a bookworm, but able to give advice to others based on realization. Okay. And then, these qualities are all qualities of the Supreme Lord. So they're derived from Him. So that's the icon. So, where we go to? Tamo, Shocham, Kshanti, tolerance, that comes again if one has nothing to gain from others, or one is not trying to exploit them. So we see in Krishna, he would actually we'll find that in any advance. Right? The Kshatriyas, they also have to tolerate great pain. They have to undergo great physical difficulty. Brahmanas undergo physical difficulty in one way and Kshatriyas another way on the battlefield. And not just in the fighting, but even in the conditions they have to live in during. It's very rudimentary. So, arjavam, straightforwardness. Well, when Krishna speaks the Bhagavad Gita, you can see, he tells Arjuna directly, Ashochanam vasochan tvang pragyavadam sabhashase gatasana nanu shochandi pandita. You're just talking nonsense. Hey, what do you think you're a big pundit? You don't know what you're talking about. Yes. You're just like a eunuch. He say that's the worst thing you could say to a kshatriya. Of course, eunuchs can be very strong also, but the idea that you're not even a man. Klaibyama smagama. How have you become like a eunuch? Kleb means eunuch, so klaibyam, you've got the quality of a eunuch. An Arya Jushtam. You're not acting like an Arya. You're not speaking like an Arya. So Krishna is very straightforward with Arjuna. And jnana, of course, Krishna is full of jnana. All jnana is meant for knowing Krishna, and Krishna is the giver of jnana. Vedaischa sarvera hameva vedaha. He is the object of knowledge in the Vedas. Vedanta Krit, he's the maker of the Vedanta. Veda Vit, he knows the Vedas. So, Brahmana, he shouldn't become proud thinking, I know so much. Because whatever he knows is anyway a gift from Krishna. And whatever he knows, it's only a little bit of what Krishna knows. Generally, if someone has some knowledge, they tend to become proud. So, real knowledge means vidyadadati vinayam. Knowledge gives humility. One should become aware how small I am. All this knowledge, you're studying, Shastra knowledge, Gurukul, just to understand how small I am and how great is Krishna. And Krishna understands how great he is and how small is everyone else. But that doesn't make Krishna proud. Or even if he is proud, it's not material pride, because it's just an actual statement of reality that Krishna is great. We are not great. India is not great. Mera Bharat Mahan. This is all nonsense. It's just some land on some planet which is going to be destroyed in due course of time. So, Krishna has all knowledge. He gives all realization. We can see that Krishna has all realization by the very fact that he speaks Bhagavad Gita, all the knowledge of Shastra, concisely in Bhagavad Gita. So Brahmana reflects that. Then the other class of leaders of human society are the Kshatriyas. And though the Brahmanas tend to lead very peaceful lives, they may have big battles, verbal battles, over philosophical points. But the Kshatriyas, they lead very colorful lives. That's why we find that the Mahabharata and Ramayana, they're about Kshatriya Leelas. There may not be so much to say about Brahmanas. It may not be very exciting for people to hear, because heroism is the first quality of Brahmana, Shaurya, heroism. So that's very appealing. We don't find many big cinema stories of someone who just gets up in the morning, brushes his teeth, eats a couple of idlis, goes to a factory, comes back. There's no story to tell. Sometimes they make some kind of movies like this, but they're not very popular. Or there's some book, A Day in the Life of, what is that? Igor, there's some Russian in prison, how he just gets up and he's in prison. But appealing stories are great heroic people. So we hear about the great heroes. Or in India, in school, the children learn about the heroes of the struggle for independence. Great heroes who liberated India from the British rule and turned it over to Desi misrule. Went from our own local misrule. And anyway, the money goes overseas. Before the money was going to Britain, now it's going to Switzerland. That's all. So, what's the difference? Anyway, heroism. Krishna is a great hero. Hero means the Kshatriyas, they risk their life. to protect the citizens. So who will do that? To risk your life? But the Kshatriyas, that's what they do. That's more than anything, that's what makes them a Kshatriya. If they're not prepared to do that, there's no use to them sitting on a throne or calling themselves a Kshatriya. So they do get a lot of facility, and they do get a lot of prestige, and they have a fabulous position in human society. But it's when the time comes, they have to get on their horse and get out and fight and be prepared to die. So it's not just that they get all facility. Whereas nowadays, the leaders, they have a big position, but they're not going to take any risk. They're not going to risk themselves for the sake of anyone. They're not going to risk their life. And even there are plenty of people who want to kill them, but they spend crores and crores of rupees of the taxpayers' money on protecting their own life. There's no protection for the ordinary man's life, but for the politicians, they have huge security arrangements. They're so afraid. There's so much the antithesis of a Kshatriya that they can't defend themselves, and they have to have hundreds of men around them defending them. Just completely the opposite of a Kshatriya. So Krishna, of course, he doesn't risk his life because he never dies, but he takes that role of a Kshatriya, defending the people. He will protect. He gets out there. He's not just sitting, speaking Bhagavad Gita, but he's out there in the middle of the people, in the middle of the fight. He's involved with human society. He's not just speaking some philosophy, but he acts in the world to protect dharma. The Brahmanas protect dharma by living an ideal life and by teaching the proper conclusions of Shastra and defending the proper conclusions of Shastra from people who may want to twist that and give wrong ideas. But the Kshatriyas do so by defending the Brahmanas, defending the cows. These modern so-called Kshatriyas, they build slaughterhouses. Just the opposite. So Krishna, of course, he can never die, so you may say he's not risking his life, but he feels like that. He accepts, under his Leela Shakti, he accepts the role as if a human being. And so, although he feels confident to fight with various demons, but still he has to fight. Actually, just by his wish, he could kill all the demons. They could just drop dead on the spot, but he gets out there and fights with them. So he's a great hero, protects the citizens from the evildoers. Then Teja means power. Obviously, Kshatriya has to have power and vigor. Not that he can just be some weakly person who has to have his mother feed him spoon by spoon. He has to be powerful in all respects. I mean, Kshatriya should have a big, strong body and be able to fight and have strength of mind and be able to dominate. Even mentally, he has to be very strong to dominate others, to not be wishy-washy. He has to make decisions. He has to stand by them. Of course, good Kshatriya, he takes advice from others, from the Brahmanas. He doesn't act whimsically. But once a decision is made, he has to see it through. So, Dhritihi, determination, so that all these are connected. You can't be a wishy-washy hero. Determination, fixed determination, sticking to a point. So, all these qualities we see in Krishna. Krishna is consistent. He sticks to his point. He's going to protect his devotees. He's going to kill the demons. He's determined to do that. Daksham, expertise. That means worldly expertise. Krishna is very expert. For instance, when he saw the situation in Mathura was not safe for the citizens, then he made a fort in the sea called Dwaraka. It was a very good move. Very expert thing to do. He solved the problem by doing that. He's very, very expert in doing the whatever is required, because although some training may be there for Kshatriyas, one thing is you can't make, just like there are leadership seminars and so many books on leadership, but you can't make someone who doesn't have the basic qualities, you can't make them into a leader. You can do whatever genetic modification you like, but you can't make a donkey into a horse. So in the same way, as Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Shauryam tejo dritiya daksham yudheyapya palayanam danam ishvara bhavascha kshatram karma swabhavajam. Persons are born, they have these innate qualities. If they are swabhavajam, this is their very nature. So a person who are born with such qualities, they can be trained just like a diamond is cut to make it brighter and more beautiful, but you can't just take a piece of glass and cut it and think it'll be a diamond. So in the same way, people are born with certain qualities, they can be trained in certain ways. So you can put someone without those qualities through dozens of leadership seminars, and they'll still only be fit for washing pots, which isn't bad. Someone's got to wash the pots. Otherwise he can get a job in a dishwashing factory, and then no one has to wash the pots. But then someone has to work in a dishwashing factory, dishwasher manufacturing factory. And actually these, I don't know, maybe they make them better now, but when I was a kid and they're dishwashers, they didn't wash the dishes properly anyway. Still you had to check each one of the dishes and wash them again afterward. So, people who have these innate, inborn tendencies, they can be trained. Daksham, they expertise. So expertise, you can be trained but you can never know what's going to happen in this world. There are all kinds of situations. You never know what is going to happen. And someone who has got that innate expertise, they can think on their feet, as the saying goes. In the middle of, you can tell who's a Kshatriya when there's some crisis. And then most people will just scream or say there's an earthquake and the buildings start to collapse, and who's a Kshatriya, he'll immediately take charge. Say, okay, you move over there, you people. He doesn't get disturbed. He knows, he takes charge of the situation. That's also one of the qualities. Ishvara bhava, qualities of a Kshatriya. Most people just get completely confused. They don't know what to do. But he keeps calm. He knows what to do. If there may be an earthquake and a cyclone at the same time, and usually problems don't come in ones. It never rains but it pours, as the saying goes. So he doesn't get overwhelmed by the difficulties. That expertise, of course, that may come with some life experience also. And we also find Mahabharata, Ramayana, Puranas. There are many stories, and some people they say, what is it? Just a bunch of stories. I mean, the real thing is the philosophy of the Upanishads and the Vedanta Sutra. But actually these stories which are given, they're not just any stories. It's not Tom and Jerry stories, but they're stories of really great people. Actually really great people. Who's in the Bhagavatam is not just anyone. They're very great people from the whole history of the universe who have applied how they applied the teachings of the Vedas in various difficult circumstances. How they exemplified the teachings of Shastra. So we can remember that, and especially Mahabharata, there's so many stories of this happened, that happened. It's very complex. What do you do in such a situation? Then you can remember, in this situation, Yudhishthira did this. Or you may remember in this situation, Yudhishthira gambled and maybe think, well, you shouldn't do that. Yeah. So you can learn both ways, what to do, what not to do, and see the hand of God in everything. But even if you study all Mahabharata and everything, still you'll find there are some situations where there's no known precedent for, because material nature is endlessly mutable. Adibhuta, what is that? Adibhuto kshara bhava. Material nature is endlessly mutable. Things are changing all the time, like in a kaleidoscope, so you can never tell what's going to happen. So the expertise to deal with various situations, to know how to respond, and it might not be as people expect. There's no, the Vedas are the guidebooks for human society, but all the rules are flexible. Except Smartavya Satatam Vishnu. One should always remember Vishnu. Otherwise all the rules are flexible. And we have in Mahabharata stories of people fighting with their guru. Not just people, Bhishma Dev fighting with his guru. And that doesn't mean that it's a normal thing to do, but under some circumstances there may be the grounds for it. Then who's that one Rishi? He sent his disciples for the killing the cow to eat the flesh during a famine, and that was allowed. That's allowed according to Dharma under such a circumstance to maintain the body, so that the body may continue to pursue dharmic activities. So what is normally the worst adharma is allowed in some situations. Although Srila Prabhupada said, if he was asked if you have to eat meat to stay alive, Srila Prabhupada said, I would rather die. I would rather die than eat meat. There was a situation that was brought to Srila Prabhupada's attention in the 1970s. In the Andes Mountains in South America, there was a plane crash in the snow, and some of the people died and some remained alive, but they were stuck up in the mountains. So what they did, it was very cold, so they stayed inside the plane, and they sent 2 people out to try and get someone to come and rescue them. So they were there for 1 day, 2 days, and they thought, we're going to starve to death. So they thought, there's no food to eat. They just had a few chocolates, and they had that between them. So then they thought, well, we have to eat these bodies of the people who already died. What should we do? Otherwise we'll die also. So they did that. 2 of the people who were alive refused to do so. They died, and the rest remained alive by eating. I don't know, they must have had some knives with them. That was before the days of security checks. Otherwise, I don't know, maybe they just, I'm not sure of the details. So that became a big issue around the world when it was discovered that they'd eaten human flesh, and people were saying they shouldn't have done it, and some people said it was okay to do it, and Prabhupada said, of course they should have done it. If there's nothing else to eat, and then you can eat human flesh. So normally you would not do so. But under some circumstance you can. So what to do in various circumstances? Now of course this shouldn't be taken as an excuse just to break all the rules and, okay, alright, what's for prasadam today? What happened to that little Gurukul boy? Oh, okay. Whew. Whew. Yeah, I have an insurance policy for cannibalism. It's alright, don't tell him that. He might, Srila Prabhupada also said that, well, it's not just Prabhupada, but it's right from Shastra, that in Kali Yuga, people will have children just to eat them. Already abortion is rampant. Then you think, well, why abort the child? If you just wait a little longer, you get a nice free meal. Those days are coming. So, they are eating fetuses in China, whoever they might be. Apparently that well-known video of fetuses being eaten in China, in Taiwan, is a hoax. Maybe it's a hoax, maybe it's not. But Andy Warhol, another infamous figure of the 1960s and 70s, he was said to have started the trend of eating fetuses. I'm sure he's not the first in human history to do so. But, and apparently, at least this is all in the conversations with Srila Prabhupada, and apparently there was a restaurant in New York which was selling that. Srila Prabhupada, meals cooked from human fetuses. And Srila Prabhupada said that the meat eaters have not yet discovered that the human flesh is the tastiest. It's dangerous when they discover that. But these human fetuses, they're used for all kinds of things, industrial applications and cosmetics and all kinds of things. So we need some kshatriyas. Krishna. Where do we go there? So, Daksham, and Yuddhe Chapya Palayanam. That the kshatriya doesn't run away in the battle. So modern leaders, they also don't run away in the battle because they never go anywhere near a battle. They just sit and give orders to send other people to die. But Krishna, he's exemplary. Rama, he's not just sending out the troops. Ravana, he just sat and sent everyone out to die, and then when there was no one else, then only he came out in the fight with Rama. But in the beginning, he just sent his troops out because he thought, I'm not going to go and fight with human beings. It's below my dignity. That's why he didn't even take a benediction. He took the benediction that I will not be killed by Rakshasas, Asuras, Devas, but he didn't take from humans. I don't. It's just like you don't have a yagya made to protect you from being killed by houseflies. These little houseflies. Into a big yagya. Swaha. Protect us from houseflies. You don't do it because it's ridiculous. So Ravana, he thought, I don't need any benediction to be protection from humans. Come on, I eat humans. 20 of them for breakfast. So he didn't think he needed. So he sent out all the others, but one by one they were getting killed. First of all, his army got killed, and then Kumbhakarna, Indrajit had defeated Indra, but he got killed. And in the end, he went out and he got killed also. But generally, the Kshatriyas, they'll be out there and they take pleasure. Just like this Kargil fight was there, and all the soldiers in different cantonments, they were asking, please send me, because they're trained all the time for fighting, but they never get to fight. So now's the chance. They want to risk their life because that's their spirit. That's Kshatriya spirit. So we find also Rama, he didn't, when there were demons, he didn't run away. Even Lakshman wanted to come and help him that first time. There was the Dushan, who were the others? Kara, and who was the other one? Anyway, Rama just said, okay, you look after Sita, and I'm going to enjoy this one myself. Almost like that, so fast. We can't imagine how fast. So sometimes it's described that Arjuna or Rama or Krishna, They were pulling the arrows and putting it on so fast you couldn't even see their hand. You couldn't even see the bows or the hand or anything. It was just so fast you'd have to see it in slow motion to see it. So they're in bliss, but they weren't just sitting back and they weren't watching it on a movie. They weren't making war movies. They were right out there doing the thing themselves. So Yuddhe Cha Apalayanam, a Kshatriya, he doesn't turn his back. Real Kshatriya. Of course, there are many descriptions in Mahabharata of the war of soldiers. They get so afraid they'd turn and run away. But the real leaders, they could never do so. Otherwise, the leaders they lose their followers. The real Kshatriyas, they can't turn their back. They just keep on going forward. And if they get killed, they get killed. But they don't run away. That's a real Kshatriya. Yuddhecha apalayanam. Dhanam, giving. They're not just dominating the people, but they take taxes and give. Always giving. Yes. Kshatriya, he should be in such a position. Anyone, especially Brahmana, comes to and asks anything, immediately gives. No. So he has such wealth and property, but immediately he's ready to give. And so he's not that he's just trying to control everything and own everything, but always ready to give. And especially he keeps much wealth, and that's kept, and excess wealth should that is kept because if there's any time of difficulty, that can be used also. Just like he should have a stock of grains, and if there's durbhiksha, famine, then he distributes. So should have a very generous mentality. So Krishna, of course, most generous mentality. He gives everything to everyone. And Ishvara Bhav, the quality of a Kshatriya, means he feels he's in control. Now this is different to the Ishvaroham mentality of the demon, which Krishna mentions in Bhagavad Gita. The mentality of the demon, Ishvaroham aham bhogi. I am the controller, I am the enjoyer. But the Ishvaroham of the Kshatriya means he understands, he's the representative of the Supreme Lord to protect others, to maintain them like a father, not to exploit them. So he recognizes that he's a representative of the Supreme Lord, and he rules with the goodness of the Supreme Lord, not with the exploitive spirit. That giving, even though the Kshatriya takes taxes, but he wants to give to others. So again, the Krishna can give because he's full in himself. He doesn't need to take anything from anyone. He can give to others. There's much more pleasure in giving than taking. So Krishna takes pleasure in giving, and the Kshatriya takes pleasure. He'll give, he'll perform a sacrifice and give everything to the Brahmanas and have nothing left. So he's very happy like that. He's also detached. Even though he's controlling, he's detached. That's why the kings previously, they would rule, and then when they'd see their son is old enough and trained, they'd just leave and go to the forest. With nothing. No jewels, no prestige. When they go to the forest, even the different rishis there, they wouldn't say, well, actually, I was the king. No, they just become completely detached. So, these are the great qualities of the Brahmanas and Kshatriyas, which they derive from always meditating upon the Supreme Personality of Godhead and of their position as subordinate to Him. And I'll just go a little longer so I can finish this topic. So, we should recognize who is the leader. practically one's whole life, we have to follow some leader. Even the leaders, they have to follow leaders. Except Krishna. He's the one independent leader. Swatantra. Swarat. So we have to follow a leader, and it's the duty of a follower to follow the leader. If the leader is good, then the followers will be happy by following the leader. That will be the automatic result. Of course, in the modern age, the leaders, they try to trick people into thinking that they'll be happy by following them. And they think that we'll give you... Now you have motorbikes and cell phones and TVs, but these things don't actually make people happy. So a real leader is one who is trained in Vedic knowledge and who knows that human life is meant for God realization. And who knows that human society is meant for a cooperative effort in God realization. So the test of a leader is if the people under him are happy. Because ultimately, as Srila Prabhupada said, force will not stand. A leader can coerce people into following him. He can get some people around him who jackboot people into following, they follow out of fear. But ultimately, one will be very happy to follow if they have complete trust that the leader is acting for my benefit. And again we have the example of Ayodhya under Ramachandra Bhagavan. The citizens were very happy. They knew that if we just follow, actually they never thought of not following, the thought didn't even come to their mind. But they knew that by following Rama, that all their needs, material and spiritual, will be fulfilled. They didn't have to have a daily news service to report all the corruption of the leaders and how all the irreligious activities of the leaders. There was no question of that. So the people were very happy to follow and happy to give their taxes, because they knew that our best interest is served by doing so. And of course, whether the leader is good or not good, if those who are in a subordinate position don't follow, they get in trouble. The leader has to discipline. If people don't follow dharma, then a dharmic leader has to discipline them for the sake of that person who is deviating and for the sake of the whole human society. Just like I was saying, nowadays this idea you should tolerate. Yeah, well, people like to kill cows, so let them kill them. That was Mahatma Gandhi's idea. Otherwise, cow slaughter would have been banned in India if it wasn't for the sake of Mahatma Gandhi, who said, no, we have to allow it because some people like it. So, he talked about ahimsa, but he had no clear conception. It was according to his own ideas, not according to Shastra. So, leaders also have to exert discipline. They have to be strict. Even if he wants the good of others, but he has to be strict also. That means he has to administer according to dharma. One of the names of Yamaraj is Dharma. Very strict. He's punishing. Yudhishthira is also known as Dharma, Dharmaraj. So king has to be strict, but he rules for the benefit of others. If the leader is bad, then everyone is discontent. Even if the leaders try to do good for the citizens, but they don't, even if they have a general idea to do good for the citizens, but they don't know what is good for the citizens, then the citizens won't be happy. Now, in South Africa, Nelson Mandela is dying. Actually, in South Africa, everyone is dying. And all over the world, everyone is dying. But he's at the last stage of this life, and people are saying what a great person he is, what good he's done for the people. But if you see the situation of South Africa now, in many ways it's worse than before his activities. I mean, there was more law and order in society. It was enforced very strictly. Nowadays, the people who Nelson Mandela wanted to liberate, they have the freedom to shoot each other, kill each other, and it's a chaotic situation in society. So basically, he wanted to do good for the people, but he didn't know how to do good. I was discussing with Rasananda Prabhu. Among the recent American presidents, Jimmy Carter seems to be one who was actually had some idea. He was actually wanted to do good, whereas Tricky Dicky, as he was known, his contemporary Richard Nixon, he didn't want to do good for the people. He was a rogue in all respects. I mean, there's even a recording of him. I mean, there are so many tapes, Watergate tapes released, in which someone was talking to him about the health schemes, and Richard Nixon says, well, I'm not much in favor of these health schemes for the people. And the person came back and said, well, this is being done purely for profit motive. It's not actually for the welfare of people. I said, oh, okay, that's okay. I mean, a real rascal, rogue. So Jimmy Carter, we can see from his life after being president also that he does things to help people, like building houses for destitute people. So he's a nice guy. But at the same time, he was ineffective as a president. And the condition of the of the American society didn't improve, because even if you want to be good, if you don't know what is good, then you can't do good. So it's not enough to want to do good or to feel good or to be good or be nice, but you have to know what's actually good for people. Just like people praise Mother Teresa, the great good she did, but the condition of Calcutta hardly changed at all during her presence. And for all her talking of doing good, I mean, she was eating meat, which didn't do much good for the goats she was eating, or for the karma of the people that she fed with goat meat, and so on. And Dalai Lama, people think, oh, he's such a good guy, but he's eating meat every day. So, what's good about that? Again, it's not good for the animals he eats. It's not a good example for others. He talks about peace, but he has no idea of the laws of God. So even if the leader has an idea to help the people, and there aren't many leaders like that nowadays, because most people just want to exploit the people, and they're becoming more and more brazen about it. But even if someone genuinely has a motive to help others, they can't do so unless they understand the laws of God as given in Shastra. And if you don't follow the laws of God, then you won't be satisfied. And that's why the whole human society is dissatisfied today. One major cause we can say is because there are no proper leaders. They don't know how to lead. So Srila Prabhupada wanted to make this society to lead the world, to give proper leadership based on the Vedic principles. So even within our society, ISKCON, we can know a leader is good if he's leading according to the principles of Krishna consciousness as given by Srila Prabhupada, and the devotees feel satisfied working under him. But if sense gratification is offered in the name of Krishna consciousness, then there may be some superficial satisfaction, but it won't be yayatma suprasidati. So, some other points. A real leader is loved even if he's strict. If people appreciate they're strict for our benefit, then that is loved. Vena, we find in Bhagavatam, he was very strict, but he was hated because he was strict, but he didn't love anyone. Whereas Rama, he was also strict, but the citizens loved him because they appreciated that he was strict for the benefit of the whole human society. So today also the leaders are trying to convince us that yes, we've tested this food and it's safe to eat. We fed it to some mice and they didn't die, so you can eat it also. I just read yesterday in Sahadev Prabhu's book that they made an experiment. They fed some mice, some rats, the regular rat food, whatever that may be, and they fed some other rats some breakfast cereal, like cornflakes, and they fed some other rats the cardboard box in which the cornflakes came. And the ones who ate the normal rat food, they just went on like normal rats. The ones who ate the cornflakes, they became crazy and then they died. And the one who ate the cardboard box, they also became crazy and died, but not as quickly as the one who ate the cornflakes. So the conclusion is, if you want a healthy breakfast and your mother brings you the box of cornflakes, better eat the cornflake box. You'll be better off. But if you see the advertisements, cornflakes, da-da-da-da, how wonderful! I didn't see any advertisements on TV for a long time, so I don't know exactly what they say. I'm out of date what kind of strategies they have for marketing, but it's that idea that, oh, so wonderful, cornflakes, it's so healthy, added vitamins, and so wonderful, and this modern diet. I mean, in the past, people, they didn't have canned food and frozen food and genetically modified food, and we're so advanced nowadays, and we have cardiac diseases and obesity and all these things. But don't worry, we have great pharmaceutical companies, and they are doing research to find the solutions. So you can drink your soda pops and have a wonderful breakfast of cornflakes and soda pops, and at midday you can take a hamburger, and don't worry, we'll give you a pill at the cheap price of only $500 per pill, and you can be healthy. So they're trying to convince us. And most people are stupid enough, they believe all these things. That's the problem. This Krishna conscious movement is meant to make people intelligent. Yeah, I mean, leaders, they can even convince you that for the benefit of civilization, you young man have to, or young woman, you have to go out to some desert country you never heard of before and risk your life and kill people who you've got no argument with for the benefit of humanity. So they've convinced some people. Many people try to point out the faults in human society, and many of them do in many apt ways. But just like this book that Sahadev Prabhu has made about food and how it's modern food is all processed food, it's all rubbish. Just if one of the things in there is, if it's advertised on TV, don't eat it. If it's advertised anywhere, don't eat it. So there are many people pointing out the faults, like how the politicians are cheating. There are not many who are pointing out how the education system is cheating. The food, that's all cheating, and pretty much everything is cheating. But Srila Prabhupada pointed out how everything is cheating and what the solution is, and that is Krishna consciousness. So really people should read Prabhupada's books and listen to them and act according to them, and we should propagate this knowledge in human society. We should have the faith that everything Prabhupada said is perfect and is much needed in human society. This insane society where people are apaswartha parayana, completely addicted, completely attached to doing that which is completely against their own self-interest. Okay, Hare Krishna, I'll finish there. It's almost time for the Paran. Sorry to torture you all with that long class. I didn't mean to make it so long, but Somehow it got extended. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna. We should all accept Krishna as our leader. There is a system that Krishna made that there are sub-leaders also. So there are Brahmanas are general leaders of human society. Kshatriyas are civic leaders. Then within the Brahmanas there will be gurus. There are parents in families. There are leaders at all different levels. So leadership should be respected, inasmuch as it sticks to as the leaders stick to Krishna and have the qualities of Krishna. So that's the summary of this long class. Hare Krishna. Oh, question. Vayam tu na vitirpyama uttama shloka vikrame. What's the rest of the verse? Uttama shloka vikrame. Tad shrinvatam rasagyanam swadu swadu pade pade. Shonaka and the other rishi said, we're not satisfied. We didn't get enough. We want to hear some more about the qualities of Krishna. So, you want to hear some more. Is it? Yes.
The leader is not consulting with a Brahmana, then he is a Kshatriya.
If a Kshatriya is not consulting a Brahmana, then he's not a real Kshatriya, because a Kshatriya, that's one of the two, that's enunciated elsewhere, that they should follow the Brahmanas. Vena is the example. He thought, I don't have to follow anyone. I am self-sufficient. The Brahmanas dethroned him. So they should consult. But in some situations, they may not be able to consult. They have to make a decision on the spot. Just for example, there are many, many, many examples. This Dushyant, he was in the forest, he met a beautiful girl. They decided on the spot to get married, according to Gandharva rites. But he thought, yes, this is, first of all he thought, is this according to Dharma? Yes, it's according to Dharma. He had to make his own decision. He couldn't say, well, let me go back to the city, I'll consult the Brahmanas and then come back. But he acted on the spot. Gandharva marriage. In the middle of a battle, you don't bring the Brahmanas and say, well, you have to act. Minute by minute, second by second. Split second by split second. There are rules also, but you have to see what to do. You have to make decisions. Kshatriyas, they have to make decisions. But things like that, like the long-term policies that will affect the whole society, generally there won't be so much in Vedic culture as there will be in modern society, where they're changing the rules all the time according to their own whims. But there are set rules, and the society and the setup is quite stable from generation to generation. But there may be some things which will some policy, just like we find that Krishna consulted his counselors before deciding. There was the idea for the Rajasuya Yagya. Then Krishna took the advice that first Jarasandha has to be killed. So Krishna, Bhima and Arjuna, they went to what's the place? Rajgriha. That's in now in Bihar. Magad is the state and the city is Rajgriha. So he went there. So he consulted, then he took decision. Major decision like that where you don't have to, when you don't have to decide in a split second, then it's best to consult others. That's also a sign of intelligence. The sign of intelligence for a jiva is to be intelligent enough to understand that his intelligence is not all expensive and that therefore he should take advice from others. Krishna doesn't need to do that. So there is a difference in every sphere between Krishna and the jiva. Therefore, Krishna is truly called Neta. He is the real leader of all leaders. And the way that Krishna leads and the way that a jiva leads it can never be exactly the same, because the jiva doesn't have the same power or authority as the Supreme Lord. So, one important quality of a leader is he knows his abilities and his limitations. Alright, Hare Krishna. Like I say, there's much to be written about, to be spoken about this, but I thought yesterday I'd finished, but then I thought of some more points. Actually, there could be so much. It's actually a very, very important name to consider. But the whole point of Krishna consciousness is to recognize Krishna as our leader. Right, Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose. He's known as Neta. And in general, we'll talk about Neta, you'll speak. Jana Neta, leader of the people. So it's alright. Just like many of these names, they'll be used for humans also. For demigods. We have in Vishnu Sahasranama the name Vishvakarma. Generally we think that means the demigod. But that's originally a name for Vishnu. So many names are there. Shambhu, the name of Vishnu. Generally it's associated with Lord Shiva. So we can say conventionally various names are ascribed to others except Vishnu, but actually all the qualities that by which people are known by those names, they are originally in Vishnu and they're fully manifest in Vishnu, and he is the actual Shiva, Shambhu, Vishvakarma, Neta, and so on. Hare Krishna.